Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Dog Talk. This is episode 78.
I'm Cam and this is Julie. This week's Torah portion is from Genesis 18 to the end of Genesis 22. There's just so much in those 5 chapters because in Genesis, all the foundations are being set. These are the foundations that are going to be need to be understood for the very end.
Yeah.
They're so important. They're the setting up of the patterns that are going to happen over and over. And it really kind of is injustice to try to put this in such a small amount of time, what could literally be spoken of for weeks.
Right.
There's so much information. On that note, let's look at the Passover hints that we have in this week's Torah portion.
Mm-hmm.
We have it in 18 all the way through 22.
I have one in Torah also.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course you do.
Do.
Hello. That just shows you it really is here. So in Genesis 18, we have the hints by the fact that it's unleavened bread. We also see that in 19. Well, when you cook bread and you cook it quickly, it doesn't rise. Therefore, it is unleavened bread.
Right.
We see the same thing in 19 where Lot goes and he quickly makes the unleavened bread for them to eat. That feel of Passover is all the way through there. Mm-hmm. We have also the 3 measures that are given to the 3 men or the Lord is the same. We have the 3 matzahs at Passover. Mm-hmm. We have the promise of the son, of course, during the Passover. It's the appointed time in which the Lord's going to revisit, and it will be the birth of Isaac, their son. There's also in this week, chapter 19, where we have Lot being pulled out.
Right.
Now, we're always looking for how does Lot hook with the end times, and then we try to stick it with rapture or before the wrath, or we're not sure. And, it kind of hit me this week. This is a great pattern for what happens in Egypt. They go in, Lot assimilates, basically. Mm-hmm. Israel goes in, assimilates, and the Lord pulls them out while judgment's coming down. It's the same idea. You got to hurry up, let's go. I can't finish this, right? We even have those from Israel who are left behind, per se, mm-hmm. in Egypt because they will not come out, right?
Right.
And if they didn't put the blood over the doors, then they lost their firstborn, or the whole family would have been left behind as well. So we see that with Lot. Lot, part of his family was left behind. They didn't come out. They were destroyed in the judgment.
Right.
And so there's some, I think, legitimate parallels with what happened in Egypt. Because, of course, that parallels our end times, right? So why wouldn't it kind of be a foreshadow? I wouldn't be surprised at all if those, when they came out, were like, oh, yeah, look, we see the pattern of Lot. That's what happened with us in Egypt. I would also say, while maybe a little far-reaching, this week we see that separation. And I think that is something that you also see with the Passover. You see those who want to be obedient and those who don't want to be obedient. Right. You see that separation happening all in one body.
Yeah.
And then the biggest event, of course, is Genesis 22, where we have the Akedah. We have the binding of Isaac. Well, hello. We know this points all the way to Messiah. The sages say that actually Isaac did die. Not that Abraham killed him. We know he didn't because he said, don't hurt the lad. But they say that he died of heart failure or whatever it was, that he actually died and then was raised again. Well, I love it. That's their thought process. Of course, that is what happened. But it happened with Messiah, who is the fulfillment of that foreshadowing. So we have all these highlights, I guess, that are foreshadowing what will come, not just with one Passover, but in multiple aspects of it and up to Messiah. And I would suggest even up to the future, in the millennium, there'll be aspects of this that we'll see revisited. But of course, we won't fully see that until we're there. So something else in this week's Torah portion that becomes very clear to me is the understanding of the 2 sons, the flesh and the spirit, which makes me think of Romans 8 when we talk about when we're in the flesh and when we're in the spirit. But you notice it's not you people in the world and you believers.
Right.
You're both believers.
They're both under Abraham's
Right.
tent.
You're both Abrahams.
Yes.
One decides to go by the flesh. One decides to go by the spirit. Now, granted, we say that Abraham's obedience to the flesh, he had Hagar. He had Ishmael. But through the spirit, he had Isaac. And while that's true, I think a more productive way to look at it from our perspective is to see it as Ishmael is the one who lives by the flesh, and Isaac is the one who lives by the spirit. It's their two life paths that we look at. Ishmael, there's really nothing said derogatory towards Ishmael during his lifetime. We know that later his generations come to be at somewhat odds, with Israel, but it's more so with Esau than it is with Ishmael. Ishmael's blessed. The Lord promises to bless him, just like he promises to bless Isaac. But those blessings look very different. Well, we see that with believers. We have, if you think about it in Matthew 5, you have those who are least and most in the kingdom, right? Greater and the least. Well, both of them are still, I guess, under Abraham per se. They're still in the Lord. Now, when you look at the two sons, right, we have the one of the flesh who walks in the flesh. He marries an Egyptian. And he travels within the wilderness of Paran, who stays there. He never really reaches that rest. Then we have Isaac, who marries the chosen woman, Rebekah, who's of the family line, who they do enter the rest per se. They're in the land. They don't see the fulfillment of it, but they're where they're told to be, and they're staying there. They're dwelling there, understanding the promise that'll be his.
Right.
That'll be theirs.
To the Lord.
Right.
Because that's his land.
Yes.
So they're choosing to cling to him. Where you are, I'll be.
Right. Yeah. Like Ruth. Right.
Yes.
That promise. And we see who goes into Sarah's tents. Isaac and Rebekah go in to Sarah's tent. Never Ishmael. Right. Now this week we have it happening with the women. We have Sarah and Hagar that have to split. Because again,
too much contention and strife.
That's right. Too much strife. Exact same thing. Lot was there to be with Abram. Hagar was supposed to be there to be with Sarah, and it didn't work. There's a lot of contention we see. I often wonder in chapter 20, when they go into Abimelech's area, and Abraham says, this is my sister, right? Where's Hagar? Because she's still there, and she has a son. So I'm like, is she presumed to be Abraham's wife and child? I mean, it is Abraham's child, but she is the maiden of Sarah. That child, Ishmael, was meant to be Sarah's heir, not Hagar. Hagar had a point to be underneath the mistress at all times, and that child to actually be above the mother, above Hagar, to be the heir. So it would have gone Sarah, Ishmael, and then Hagar. But when they go into this area, there's no mention of her, but I almost get the feeling that she is acting in the role of the wife. Because in chapter 21, where we see Sarah saying she's got to go, and it says that child Ishmael will have no part with my son. And Hagar and Ishmael are kicked out together, because I would suggest Hagar never did line up under Sarah like she was supposed to. And by Ishmael seeing that, he never took Sarah as his mother. He only took her, I guess, more like as a nuisance. You're in the way. So now your child is a nuisance because I'm the firstborn. Hagar kept the idea of she was the wife and Sarah was just there for whatever reason, which immediately makes me go back to the thought process of what, as a church, many have done, right? We're the real wife.
Yeah.
Now get out of here, Israel.
Right.
Hit the road.
Right.
But we don't become greater. The
We're
branches never become greater than the root. Even Messiah says that he's not greater than the one who sent him.
Right.
So look, if Messiah is never greater than the one who sent him, how dare us ever think that we are supplanting or taking over what Israel was designed to do? We get to come in. The tents of Sarah were expanded, just like we talked about a few weeks ago in Isaiah 54. The pegs are expanded. Abraham has lots and lots of children. Let's remember in chapter 17 that everyone in his household is circumcised, every male. Those males, later on, when he moves further back towards to move out of the land, so Isaac has it. Now, we don't have anyone in the land but Isaac, because we know that Ishmael remains south. And then we have Abraham who moves. All those children are circumcised. But even out of that group, now you've got the obedient sons of Abraham, then there's still the seed of Abraham. And that is the begotten one. That is Isaac. All right. Does that make sense? You have this moving into a smaller line. That's that remnant that the Lord wants to deal with. It doesn't mean he ignores everyone else. He just deals
They have
very
different
different
parts.
Yes, he deals very differently with them.
Right. Right.
I'd also make one other suggestion that Ishmael is the fleshly line, like I said. In the millennium, as we've talked before, odds are that's the part that's got to experience 1,000 years versus the Isaac part that's going to experience the one day.
Right. Yeah.
The heavenly, we know this from Galatians 4, the heavenly, the New Jerusalem is hooked with the seed. That's Isaac. And I would suggest the earthly, the Mount Sinai, where it's all going to be taught, right, is Hagar's child. It's Ishmael. Those are the two women because that's what they produced. And then those children, what they produced was just a continuation of the hearts of the two mothers.
Yeah.
And in the end, in Revelation, aren't we dealing again with Israel and the harlot? Aren't we dealing with two women again, coming full circle?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. So we have something happening in chapter 18 that is very peculiar. We don't know what to do with it. A lot of times we try to ascribe the Trinity to it, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And that's where the three men, right. come to, or Abraham sees them in a distance and he's like, oh, the Lord. And he runs and he bows before him. He recognizes Yahweh's appearance. We know that in chapter 12 he appeared to him. We know in 13. We know in 15 through a vision. And we know in 17 he appeared. Some say that chapter 18 is only 3 days after chapter 17. If that's the case, I mean, he just saw him.
3 days later.
It's not going to be, hello. It's not going to be, what did you look like? He knows and he runs. And if you also remember this, when in 19 we see Lot sees them coming, he bows before them. He knows immediately who they are. He's not wondering. He knows what power these two men that come to him have. We see through 18 and 19 this weird use of these pronouns, and yet they stand in unity. We had they responded, they said, and then he says, and then we have in 19 where they are saying, you have to hurry up and get out. And then Yahweh is the one who sends down the rain of fire and sulfur and all that from the heavens, yet he's seen in his presence. Remember, Yahweh is omnipresent. He's everywhere. So there's no problem to be able to say he's walking right here next to Abraham and he's there. The Word of God engulfs every single bit of life. It's all there. So I have no problem saying, oh, this is kind of the understanding of what the Word of God will look like once it goes into Messiah. That's fine. Or this is another part of how Yahweh works. I don't know. I can't really explain. I don't think any of us can. I think a part of it is that we always are baffled and mystified by just how great he is. But regardless of the view of what exactly or how he looks right here, we know that Yahweh, whatever part, he speaks to himself and says, should we hide something? Should I hide something from Abraham, our friend? And then there's an agreement because he goes on and shares with him. And two leave, yet those two are still given the same amount of power as Yahweh is.
Right.
So look, kings send people in their name all the time. That's what Messiah was. But I would say that he also sends people like that. I mean, that's what the apostles were. So these people could have literally been just messengers, men walking out. They are so understood as righteous men that they're known that, hey, what they say is true. They speak for the Lord. I don't know which. It could be multifacets so that we see it in all facets to understand it is the Lord, it's his representatives, and it's just really awesome, obedient people.
Yeah.
I'm good with all of them because all of them still just testify that he's in control and that he's the one that's doing this. It's very interesting because we see that this is done by Yahweh. This judgment, he's the compassionate, the caring one, the merciful one. But I'll tell you where we see Elohim, and that's with the flood. And if you read in 2 Peter 3, you see with the fire that comes in the end, it's Elohim. Yes. Because those two are kind of like
bookends.
Yeah. It's fulfilled. I'm done.
Yeah.
Fullness. Now you have the creator, the all-powerful doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You see that when working with Hagar, a lot of it is Elohim. And you see with Sarah, it's Yoveh. Now, it doesn't mean Yoveh never speaks, because he does speak with Hagar. But it just, the amount of time that you see between the two,
Mm-hmm.
you see the merciful one much more with Sarah than you do with Hagar. Well, I guess so, because this is the one with the flesh. I mean, you can't even come in Yoveh's present, the merciful one, because you're refusing to do what is required to let you enter in without getting slapped down.
Gotcha.
So it was just something interesting that I saw this week, as looking at the pattern of where the names are being used. Well, this week is a little unconventional, because we didn't really go through the scriptures and pull out all the great stuff, because there's all these treasures everywhere.
I'm sure you did that last year.
Oh,
right?
yeah, last year. Hey, you got a minute? 23 minutes. Go watch that one.
Yeah.
We do touch on a lot of more of the meaty parts. Again, it's just looking at the overall picture, how this is setting up the outline of what else will come. There are no commandments, no direct instructions for this week. We'll be getting those as we get into Exodus.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, they'll just be flying at you.
Here's
Like,
one,
pew,
and
pew,
here's
pew.
one, and here's right.
Right. But for now, take a breath. That's not where we are yet. So we thank you so much for visiting us and being with us today. And we will see you on the flip side with Julie and the prophets.
Shalom.
Abraham and his sons. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Adopted. You might do that. Division. What?
So can we sing Father Abraham? Father
And many sons.
Abraham.
That's right.
Many
Many
sons.
sons.
Many
Heart of flesh.
sons had
Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So let's just praise the Lord. Right arm, right, left arm. Da, da.
Whoa. I never sang it like that before.